And we're back now with Republican Governor of Mississippi, Haley Barbour. He's in Biloxi this morning, and Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who joins us from Miami. Well, Governor Barbour, I have to say, if there is such a thing as an establishment Republican, I would nominate you for that title. Here you were chairman of the Republican National Committee. You were a longtime lobbyist here in Washington, and now you are the popular, I would also add, governor of Mississippi. So I want to start with this. If Joe Miller does win in Alaska, it'll be the second time this cycle that an incumbent Republican senator has been denied his party's nomination to the Senate, the other being Bob Bennett of Utah. Is this a little bit scary to the establishment types like you?
Not to me. When I was chairman of the RNC, Bob, as you mentioned, in the last decade, we never took sides in primaries. We did not endorse incumbents over challengers. Same way I'm the chairman of the Republican Governors Association today. We do not take sides in primaries, and here's why. The Republicans of Alaska have the right and should pick their nominee. They don't need somebody from Yazoo City, Mississippi to tell them who ought to be the senator from Alaska.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, we had this big rally here yesterday on the anniversary of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. I talked to those two candidates that you just heard about it. What's your take on what happened here yesterday? Does this suggest that the Tea Party is a major political force now, because a lot of these folks were members of the Tea Party?
Well, it's certainly clear that there is a raging battle going on within the Republican Party for the heart and soul of the Republican Party, and Tuesday was yet another example of that. It's hard to know where the Republican Party ends and the Tea Party begins. They've struggled to elect, and actually been able to successfully elect, their moderate candidates, the mainstream candidates. The Tea Party candidates seem to be winning because the Tea Party Republicans are energized in their primaries. So it's really caused, I think, a pretty difficult problem for them going into the November election, because they have candidates like Miller, who are on the extreme right-wing fringe, who want to end Medicare as we know it, yank the safety net out from under our senior citizens. I mean, Americans really are going to have a very clear choice set up in November between moderate Democrats who are centrists where the country is, and Republicans who are really off on the right-wing fringe. And there's countless examples of that across the country.
Let me ask the Governor Barbour about that. What about that, Governor Barbour? Because you just heard Joe Miller, who may wind up as the nominee for the Republicans up in Alaska, saying he's going to go out and campaign on less money for Alaska, less federal dollars coming in. He has taken several controversial stands like that, and I must say, to his credit, he didn't back off of them when I asked him about it this morning. But isn't that going to make it harder for some of these Republican candidates to get elected? Because down in Kentucky, you have Rand Paul, who's got the nomination for the Senate. They're talking about, well, maybe we ought to rethink the Civil Rights Acts of '64 and '65. You've got Joe Buck, who won the nomination up in Colorado, who's talking about bicycle paths being might lead to UN control or something other. It seems to me that you do have kind of an exotic crew out there this time.
The Obama administration and the Democratic Congress have taken the biggest lurch to the left in policy in American history. There have been no Congress, no administration that has run this far to the left in such a small period of time, and there is a reaction to that. Those hundreds of thousands or 100,000, however many they were on the mall yesterday, were reacting to that. They're very concerned about where our country is being driven by the Democratic majority. And as far as talking about less money, look, my budget this year in Mississippi is 13% less than it was 2 years ago. I cut spending 9.7% last year, and frankly, nobody much noticed the difference. We were able to continue to provide services. People weren't kicked off Medicaid. The fact is, the country is going to have to spend less money. And if Joe Miller was trying to say that in a different way, he is right if what he's saying is our country has got to spend less money. We've been on a spending spree that made drunken sailors have a bad name.
Congressman Wasserman Schultz, what do you think the overriding issue is going to be? I mean, I guess the conventional wisdom is that all other things aside, a lot of this is going to hinge on what shape the economy is come October.
There's no question about that. And, you know, I mean, Governor Barbour, I know, is certainly an advocate for his state. But it's hard to look at states like my home state of Florida, like his state of Mississippi, and look at the graduation rate where we're near the bottom or at the bottom when it comes to graduation rates in public education from high school, when it comes to spending on taking care of the neediest in America. These are questions that any governor should be fighting for. But when it comes to jobs in the economy, that's the driving issue for the November election. We have a lot of evidence that the economy has begun to turn around. We have a long way to go, and we've got to make sure we continue to push hard. But the American people are going to make a choice in November between right-wing extreme Republican candidates who want to take us back to where we were when President Bush was in office, backslide toward the Bush era, change Social Security, a privatized program that invests the money in the stock market. Where would we have been if we had done that in the last few years? Voucherize Medicare and essentially change our tax policy to one that is, again, focused on the wealthiest 2% of Americans. We gave Americans, 95% of Americans, a tax cut. So I don't know how giving the overwhelming majority of Americans a tax break is a lurch to the left. It's certainly been moderate and centrist and focused on trying to make sure that this economy gets a jump start. We've got a long way to go.
Let me just ask Governor Barbour, one of the big things that's going to be coming up here in the fall is whether to extend the Bush tax cuts. Is it your position that all of them ought to be extended, or just those for the middle class?
We should not have any tax increases. Tax increases in the height of Congresswoman says that the economy is recovering. Well, I can assure you 80% of the people who are watching us on TV right now know the economy is not recovering. There's no recovery on Main Street, I can tell you that for sure. And in an economy like this, we don't need to be raising anybody's taxes. And if you want to know why there was this outpouring yesterday and why the numbers are so bad for the Democrats, you ask, what's the issue? The issue is jobs, 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 jobs. And yet, for more than a year, the Democrats in Congress and the administration were totally focused on a health care reform bill that's going to increase the cost of our health care. And the American people wanted to be talking about jobs.
Congressman Wasserman Schultz, I'll give you 20 seconds to just respond to that because we've run out of time here.
Absolutely. If you look at the month before President Obama took office, we were bleeding 750,000 plus jobs a month. Fast forward a year and a half later, and we are adding about 100,000 jobs a month in the private sector. We've made the auto industry profitable. We've turned things around. We have a long way to go, and we're going to continue to push hard. But the November election is a choice, and the American people are going to continue to support Democrats because they want to continue to move in the direction that we've been going, not backslide toward the Bush era.
All right. The clock has just run out. Thanks to both of you for an enlightening discussion. I'll be back for the final
Thank you, Bob.
in just a second.